The Florida Mayhem are terrifying right now and have been beastly in these pro-ams so far, while leaning into someone's aggressive style that treads so close to the line of feeding and what I like to call the Kiriko Goon Squad. This match was very important for a couple of reasons. It impacted the standings pretty heavily, and it's the first time we've seen this new Vancouver squad get tested and this Florida squad get tested against a team that wasn't on 180 ping. Honestly, this entire team has really impressed me, except Merritt, who feels like he's taken a slight step back compared to his sojourn last season, but he's still doing fine. The Mayhem have been sticking to their Winston Cassidy, Tracer, Kiriko Ana composition almost exclusively, with some slight variations every now and then. And I mean, why would they even change anything if it's working so well? Map 1, Ilios, was a 2-1 win for Florida, and it was mostly a Winston mirror with a sprinkle of Punk Doomfist to help the Titans win Lighthouse, which also ended in a Florida C9. This was easily the best Tracer matchup we've seen in the tournament so far. Sugarfree and Checkmate didn't really mark each other that much, and usually both of them opted to try and outdo each other in the backline, and a lot of fights came down to which backline was killed first. This is really felt when comparing Lighthouse to Well as maps. On Lighthouse, Tracer has a lot more room to set up plays and force point by herself due to where the backlines are set up and the distance between them. Whereas on Well, the dive is a lot shorter compared to the backline's positions, forcing point is not an option, and there aren't a ton of places to weave around the backline without being really deep. Considering this, it's easy to see why Florida was utterly dominant on Well, because they had better aggression timings using the Tracer and the Winston dive, and as well as the Someone factor, and why they lost out on Lighthouse largely due to Sugarfree's mechanical plays. And I'm not saying Punk's Winston was bad by any means, especially for someone who is just picking up the character in a professional setting now, but compared to someone who is just on another level, the lack of time investment was very noticeable. Moving on to map 2, Hollywood. Florida would win this map 2-1 and continue their Winston dominance, with the only compositional difference being Faith on the Brigida compared to RuPaul on the Kiriko. There are some pros and cons between Brig and Kiriko, but it's also just a comfort pick for Faith. The Brig allows the Titans to control high ground space a lot easier, in this case the big tall high grounds on B and the main high ground on A on their offense specifically. You would think this would also make the backline more survivable, and it does in some ways, but it also makes it more susceptible to the dive happening. This comes back to the way Florida has been playing Kiriko in a goon squad with Tracer to start fights, setting up Checkmate into position quickly while simultaneously overwhelming the duel with Sugarfree. I like to think of Kiriko in this way as being a Harmony Orb that will also fight back, and if RuPaul needs to dip and go help Chorong with a Tracer flank or something like that, he can. On top of that, Kiriko provides more pressure on off angles and a better ultimate overall. Brig does survive more when the enemy is directly on top of you in a fully committed dive, but Kiriko helps make those dives harder to set up with a pincer while still having great feel for everyone with Suzu. In this match, the Brig did exactly what the Vancouver Titans wanted it to do. On their offense, they took the A high ground very easily. Crimzo traded Sleep for Suzu and then found a big ante on someone for the kill. Then he took it a step further and anteed the backline for a good measure, letting Vancouver cap A easily. Then on B, Vancouver looked to push the high ground with Rally, so Florida responded with the Kitsune Rush and forced the Titans back down. But ultimately, the Titans would be able to gain control of the high ground and push it to the last corner. However, once the Titans had the high ground, Florida were able to stabilize in the saloon, use Nano Someone to dissuade a brawl on point, and then clutch up. Even on the defense, the Brig pick almost worked. After losing A immediately to a nice nade from Chorong, the Titans survived another 5+ minutes from denying the high ground access and Sugarfree plus Punk catching the backline on their rotations. What would eventually break the Vancouver Titans was a Checkmate flank featuring a nice stick on Crimzo. And it all comes back full circle to the original point with the Kiriko versus the Brigida. Overall, this was a very exciting match, and I cannot wait to see what these teams do in the bracket. Although Vancouver does need to beat the Shark tomorrow to make that a reality, but we'll see what happens. Your Tommathan player of the match is someone. He is what drove the play for Florida, and I think fully leaning into his playstyle is the way for this team moving forward. How do you guys see someone's season going? I know this is really early, but I see at minimum a role star and probably MVP consideration. Let me know your thoughts down below though.